ThinkTall Conversations, brought to you by Barista. Hello and welcome to another fantastic edition of ThinkTall Conversations as we're coming to you from the beautiful outlet in Nugegoda. It's Barista's brand new outlet, and if you're in the vicinity of Nugegoda, if you're living around the vicinity of Nugegoda, this is a place that you need to come on over. Bring your friends, bring your family, and of course great food, fantastic coffee, and ThinkTall is what we are basically talking about. ThinkTall Conversations is where we speak to young, inspiring leaders. Leaders who obviously have been in situations where they have to have a think tall mindset, a mindset that they get themselves out of issues, thinking creatively, thinking out of the box, and making sure the pushbacks are pushed back right back. That's exactly what ThinkTall Conversations are. And today we have another inspiring leader, Seninda Bandara, of course. He's the founder of boutique agency. Seninda, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for getting me in.
Not a problem. And some very interesting stories, of course. Boutique agency, right? It's not your normal agency, right? And this is something that I suppose we need to bring about to our viewers. How did the idea of boutique agency come into creation, and what inspired you to establish a niche in the market-leading, data-driven advertising model in Sri Lanka?
Well, Shak, I think first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. So I think what inspired me to start boutique agency was because anyway I had a career of like nearly 8 to 9 years in advertising.
Right.
So been working for multiple ad agencies. While working for many agencies, one thing that I have actually figured was that I have seen where the world is moving, and I saw the gap where exactly where our market has to grow. Right. So I think it's not that I really wanted to get into a niche, or like I wasn't really focusing more on a blue ocean per se, but what happened was eventually at the very beginning, the inception of boutique agency was to create a agile marketing consultation.
Right.
Basically, thank you so much. Basically to support the entire marketing fraternity, including agencies, including clients, to grow and to provide them agile marketing practices to transform them.
Right.
That was the initial idea.
Right.
So, but however, what happened was in between, I think the model in that particular way didn't sustain, but eventually we became an agency that also operating in a blue ocean. As you said, like it's a niche, but our core was data, because we started with that. We identified like if you want to become agile, you need to listen to your data in the first place.
Right.
So our starting point was we were very curious on data. So we deep dive with the data, and then we understood like if you really closely look into this data, then you can do like wonders with it.
But isn't data, especially when it comes to advertising, it comes to brand, it's very emotional, isn't it? I mean, the connection is emotional. Data maybe plays a pivotal role at the beginning of it, but from that point onwards, it's emotion that really takes over. How do you sustain that?
I think one realization what we really understood when we were, this understanding we had like a couple of years back when while we have done many things, and then we look back and we try to understand what exactly we understood through this data. So there's one very important, I must say that it's a
element.
Not just an element. I think it's like where we got we got enlightened with something.
Okay.
We figured the whole advertising, and we are also curious on data. We are trying to pull this data and create campaigns, try to direct clients with this whole data-driven approach. But there's one enlightenment we had. The way how advertising really works is based on causality, the law of causality.
Right.
So it's cause and effect.
Right.
So on data, what you see is the effect.
Effect.
And then what that effect means is like, there is a reason behind that particular, whatever the data that we see. So if you understand that from your human mind point of view, then you will be able to change your future. So even if it is predictive or whatever it is, like either the data might show you the past, data might show you the future, but whatever it is, it's the effect. So if you go deeper into it, like we understand the real causality, then you will be able to change anything. So then we figured that is applicable not even for like digital, but that is applicable for creatives. So that is applicable for your business planning. Anything that matters, it's applicable. So the whole idea of data is that you have to be like, I must say, one, that you have to be slightly data curious, because, and then you have to believe in data also, because if you are not believing in data, if you work on your gut feeling, you know, these two things don't work.
Right, okay.
But sometimes people work on their gut feeling, but that also works. So, but when you look at the data, it might tell some sort of story. So therefore, like what we were trying to understand was that though, like, you know, as you said, like there is an emotional connect after some time, but that whole thing about advertising is not pure art or pure entertainment.
Right.
Advertising is scientific.
Right.
So, like in a simple term, we develop a 30-second commercial. It's not just a creative piece, but within that creative piece, it's scientifically you have to sell a product, or like you have to change a human behavior. So how do you do that? So in order to do that, that's where like you need to understand so much of things about the human. So data helps you to understand such things.
Now, you obviously did have a ThinkTall mindset when you decided to move away from the agency, because you strongly believed in data analytics. You strongly believe in data advertising. You obviously had a thought process that you are going to set up something, an agency, not necessarily an agency, as consultation, in order to assist agencies and clients. That didn't go down too well. Why?
The fundamental issue was a model in that nature, for you to work on, there has to be a dying need. So what happened was, we are talking about, at that time we were talking about future to this market.
Right.
But technically it isn't the future. So now even in today's context we are talking about AI as a future, but AI isn't the future, AI is today.
Right.
So that's the gap. So then we figured it's so hard, like let's say if you look at, like if you take this entire market, this market is very small.
Right.
And then like you can't really collaboratively work with all the agencies. The model didn't really like sustainable enough.
Did they not buy into your idea?
In certain ways, like initially that I've been working with a couple of agencies in partnership, but then again there are like a lot of issues, like you won't be able to transform the agency. I mean, you have to take a huge leap to
The
do
mindset.
that. Yeah, so that's the hardest part. And then from the client's point of view, so directly they've been asking, like, I mean, like to be very honest, like initially what we did was, at the very beginning, I mean, like we had this mindset, we had this, as you said, like this ThinkTall mindset, because obviously I need to have a ThinkTall mindset, like I'm the, with my height.
ThinkTall mindset for a short person.
Of course. Without having a ThinkTall mindset, you won't be able to do anything. So the first thing what we did in this market was actually in 2016, we created a space, a physical space called a war room.
Okay.
This war room is like a video wall, 6 different screens, and we put so much of multidiscipline data there, like different dashboards, different data points from various different points. So at one given point, you will be able to see like multiple different things in one point. And then that is actually a way of thinking and way of working. So for instance, like imagine you get a creative guy and some strategist and an analyst, and like maybe like a digital guy or a media planner. So all of them, they look at different multiple data, and then they do the brainstorming by looking at these data points. So this war room was actually like a toy that everyone was talking about it at that time. Everyone wants to experience it, but the buy-in was the problem, because one, like you need to have a certain skill set developed within you to do all these things. So later on we sort of we understood, the model might not work that way. So that's where this whole entrepreneurial mindset comes in.
Right.
So like we package and we incorporate it as an agency so that all of these things became whatever the competitive advantage.
Right. So what you're saying is the fact that we still have old school thinking in our advertising. We still want the warmth, the emotional connection. And does creativity actually play a bigger role in data? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. I think that is our existing current understanding, because right now, we might talk about that later, like the new AI technologies are all about creativity.
Right.
And we are doing all sort of academic research to everything to understand creatives, because advertising, the biggest component of advertising is creative.
Yeah.
So while half of my career I have spent in media planning,
right.
but I understood basically the whole role of media planning is reaching out to the exact consumer at the right point.
Right.
But what you are going to say is the most effective thing or the most important thing, the messaging. So that is where the creative role comes in. So how do you convince someone at the right time or whatever? So therefore there has to be orchestration anyway, but I think creativity plays a huge role, and therefore the biggest problem, I would say, the old school mindset, I have a different point of view into it.
Huh?
So when we start developing these AI technologies, one of the first thing what we were trying to do is to talk to the legendary admin in Sri Lanka who has done some remarkable ads. We still remember those old days ads.
Yeah.
And there has to be a reason for that, right? So including
emotional connection.
Exactly. So it could be the little bit of nostalgia.
Yeah.
But also one lesser fragmentation compared to now. But on the other end, if you look at the creatives, we see that there is a big difference. I'm not saying that in today's context you won't get great, brilliant creatives, but comparatively lesser. Those days, anyway, if you compare two periods together, those days to create an ad that's a huge investment.
Right.
So obviously you have to put so much of effort to create that ad. So but in today's context, relatively the amounts are getting lesser. Therefore, sometimes you won't put that much of effort. But the real issue is that when you really looking into the process of how they come up with creatives, or the process of getting into the advertising, that still remains. The only issue is if you are not using it, and then you will see so much of failures.
Right.
And that's where we tend to see, in Sri Lanka in current context, whether we like it or not, clients are changing agencies quite,
frequently. Okay. So when you realized that your proposal into data-driven advertising, it's not being bought in, why did you give it up?
Obviously I knew, because the market will realize that one day. I knew also it will be very, it won't take much time, because this wave has already got into the market. Because if you take the key multinationals in the country, they were talking about it. Right. Anyway, because that's how I got the exposure while working for certain multinationals. But I knew the issue, Shaq, I would say, what in Sri Lanka, it's not there. This is something that we have to change also. Right. Maybe when you are working, you get into this whole comfort zone, and then you are you don't have to become an entrepreneur to take risks.
Right.
If you are working, that is the best place that you can take a risk. If you have a great proposal, you can always go and propose it to your peers, and maybe to your superiors, and get it done. So I think one issue in Sri Lanka I see is that there are lesser risk takers within organizations also. They tend to stay in a comfort zone.
Right.
Because
they don't want to push the boundaries.
The reason is that that's actually the old school mindset.
Yeah.
Because they are comfortable with what is happening right now.
Right.
But if you don't do that, you will see after 10-15 years, sometimes down the line, you might see the real consequences of not taking those actions.
Right.
So we have seen that.
Right.
It's not only Sri Lanka, even if you take any other market, these issues have been there.
I suppose one of the classic ones is the fact that lots of industries and corporates who were very reluctant moving into the digital sphere were forced to do it because of COVID.
Yeah, that's what I say, like, who brought the digital transformation in? It was COVID.
Right, exactly.
So that's exactly the problem, because I think after COVID, like, it also helped us.
Yeah.
So I think our real growth happened after COVID.
Was there an instance, Seninda, where you tried to sell this idea to a client who just flatly refused what you were saying, who just didn't believe what you were saying?
I don't say particularly, because most of the clients, including the traditional minded clients, they haven't refused the idea. They understood there is merit in it.
Right.
But still, it's not the right time or something like that. That's what they were saying.
Right.
They were not ready. But I have seen like the same set of clients, their transformation that has happened. So sometimes, the initial proposals what we have done, that after many years, it is coming as a pitch.
Right.
So as a proposal, like other agencies have to go and pitch for it. So I think I have seen that shift.
So what was the pushback you got though? At the initial stages when you did basically bring this out to clients and also you wanted to work with agencies, what was the specific pushback that you got?
I think, what my understanding of that was, initially when I started this whole concept, it was pretty much like a one-man army.
Right.
And then slowly, like even today, like, we are a 23 people agency.
Right.
But now the difference is it's a completely diverse setup.
Right.
So it's a model agency. It's like a model contemporary ad agency. But at that time, when we were initially pitching, I think the traditional mindset also, either something like this comes from a global company, or probably has come from somewhere else. They're okay. I mean, like I have a classic example. I won't be able to expose names or anything. But during one of these times, through a friend, like we actually met one of the, like I would say, one of the top-notch minister at that time. So we proposed this idea. I mean, like he was he was fond of it, and he was really impressed by the whole thing. When we were proposing them this whole war room, and to say like put all the data together, that you have all the indicators there. So then, like, different, like your board meetings, whatever the meetings that you do, like you show them the data, and then and there you can make the decisions. He said like, this is fantastic. Your approach absolutely works well, but this technology part, we have got a, I think probably US sort of a person, like a company has presented a similar concept. But the problem, I mean, they are going to implement it, but their problem, what they said was, the US company come and implement it. They will give us the technology, they will, put all that softwares, everything done.
And they'll go off.
And no one will know how to use it.
Right.
So I think that is where we have to get you in. But unfortunately, in politics, things didn't work that way. But at that point, we actually understood we have to keep on pushing this.
Right.
But in today, like after some time, like when we started the war room initially in Sri Lanka, 2016, now I see like in many multinational agencies, I don't know about the agencies, but even clients, offices that know that they have certain war rooms installed. So that trend actually worked well, though like sometimes they don't really get the work out of it. Like sometimes they use it as a thing that you put all the dashboards, at least you see something. So that actually worked. So therefore, like now we don't have war room. So one thing we realized was we saw that the war room concept, what we brought into the market, now I consider it as an obsoleted concept.
Right.
Because after this whole generative AI boom, thought like we don't need that. Now you can do everything with generative AI. The analytics, like you don't have to like physically come and see. Now you have to talk to these technologies and get the recommendations. So you further, like you reduce your time, there's more agility. So I think that was the whole game that we were doing. Like we were just keep on changing.
Right.
I think that's actually what worked for us. We were keep on changing. Like even within our people, sometimes it's actually a bit hard, because the way how I adapt and transform is my speed is slightly different to rest of the people.
Right.
but sometimes they can't really get up to that speed, but still they have, I have seen they have they have enhanced the speed limits.
Right.
So this is actually good, because people who have been there for 4-5 years, they have changed, and like people who are joining after 1 month, 2 months, they are completely changing now. So we have seen that transformation is happening within ourselves as well.
Now, when you obviously say that you had to shift your model in terms of the agency from what you wanted to pitch to what you were forced to become, a traditional agency, how difficult was that? Because you believed in something so much that you left an agency to start something on your own.
I think, Shak, what happened was in 2022 we won Agency of the Year, Campaign Asia's Bronze Award at it was the South Asian category.
Right.
So I think we were the first agency to win in that South Asian category. So
it's a huge deal for the country.
It's a huge deal for the country, and we were like an agency started out of nowhere, right?
Right.
So you were like a small company, and somehow we had a vision, a great vision, like we grew. And then we have to compete with India and Pakistan. Obviously you know how big those countries are. So one thing what we figured after that, once we won this award, mostly while we have this data driven work and agile marketing, all of that, a part of our DNA, the award was pretty much for being a different type of an ad agency.
Okay.
But there I understood something, that if we try to put more flesh into it, we will also become another agency, but slightly we have a high advantage because of all these data driven things. But then from there on, we were focusing on either you have to continue certain things from a business perspective, you have long lasting clients, certain clients that been working with you for many years, and we have a personal connection to most of those clients, and we work on certain things. So while we improve our product, I would say the core product of the agency, that's advertising.
Right.
While we do that, the data science team I formed as a separate, it's not actually, right now, it's not a separate entity, it's a part of the agency. But still, we created it as, or rather we branded it as boutique marketing AI ecosystem. So the role is that we develop technologies.
Right.
We develop data science technologies, not just technologies, but for instance, what matters for advertising and something that can change advertising in the future. If we can change something, whether we are experimenting, whether we can change the existing theories. It's not just, we just want to change the theory, but we see there is a problem with the existing, for instance, this, from a theoretical point of view, media, the whole world that is predominantly using this reach and frequency concept for more than 40 years now. We see there's a gap. We see while you have reach and frequency, there is a role that creative is playing, which is not being, it's not encountered in this whole equation. So we are trying to understand what would be that new concept. So we are doing those type of experimentation. And to do that, you need to have people from mathematics, data science, physics, and so many different backgrounds.
Does this make advertising interesting or boring?
It makes advertising pretty much interesting.
Right.
So I'll give you one example. The technology that we recently launched, not recently, it was launched 1 year back, but recently we did a different update into it. It's called Mad AI. So if you know this whole Madison Avenue, this whole old days of advertising, and we used to call these people as madmen.
Right.
And so what we thought
Great
was...
TV series.
It's a TV series, but even the admin is actually the term that been used for the advertising people,
right.
and people who were there in Madison Street, they were called as madmen also in certain ways. So what we thought was, what if this mad people uses AI, and then we created a thing called Mad AI, because at that time, even in Sri Lanka as well as in other countries, those people who are into advertising, who's doing advertising, were proper scholars. Right. Because they understood something. They're it's not, you can't just create, it's not like how you create a film. It's like how when you're creating an ad, like you need to understand the consumer psyche, the behavior, all of that. So that insight is very important. So what we were trying to do with this technology was, now we try to understand how the anatomy of these ads were developed by looking at the emotions of the ad. And then we identified like there are two methods of how do you measure or how do you really understand emotions. There's a Western method, it's called the 6 basic emotions model. Like they identified there are 6 basic human emotions.
Right.
But whereas like when we're trying to scan, or rather we were analyzing one of these like iconic ads of Piyush Pandey, the Indian ad guru, we identified there is something missing in that 6 emotions model. So it's not something which is really working. So then we were researching, is there anything that is more relevant to the South Asian culture? Then we found in drama, the South Asian drama, this all Bharatanatyam, there is this concept called Navarasa. These 9 different emotions, how you express it.
Right.
So then we got our team to develop a model, and we were training a Navarasa model. So now we analyzed the ad in Navarasa. So after that we identified there are plenty of patterns in advertising, how it works. So if you want to create an ad, you identify the best fit pattern, and then when you add like certain other data points, like when now we have like the retention data on digital especially, like second by second how people are churning from your ad. Right. When you put all of that together, and then you can identify the best connection. Right. And when we add this whole like generative AI power of it, then we can get the exact recommendation. Like if you wanted to make a new script, you can make the script based on the exact set of emotions that will have the highest retention.
Do you feel, I'm just thinking, I mean, considering the fact that what you're talking about in data analytics and data-driven advertising, deep down somewhere, do you feel you're too early for this in this country? If you waited maybe for about another 3-4 years, do you feel it would have actually been more accepted than it was then?
See, that's the, I would say, that's the problem with entrepreneurs.
Right.
You can't wait.
Right.
You have to be the, I mean, like if you think something, okay, this is what you want to do, you want to do it somehow.
Right.
So I think what you said was exactly right, because what we are talking is, I mean, I don't want the same thing that happened to Tesla to happen to us. So, but therefore, like knowing that, so we are trying to launch things here, but of course we are focusing on the global markets now.
Well, the thing is this, now that takes us to the next question in terms of global expansion. Now, you are also pretty serious about taking this globally. I suppose being a small market, it was easy to actually test it out here, and then you learn from your mistakes and you learn from your workings, and then of course it becomes a plug and play model when you take it out. What are your aspirations, and of course in establishing boutique agency in the South Asia region, so to say?
So, in fact, I think we had that, I mean, when we were starting such developments, so obviously we understood if you want to compete in a stronger market, like South Asia is a different context, and where our key focus was into Southeast Asia.
Right.
So Southeast Asia was our like aspirational market where we want to become a Singapore-centric, not centric, but like we want to get into the Singapore and like certain Southeast Asian markets.
Right.
And we have also trying to get into that market in multiple ways. Somewhere down the line, we understood if you want to go there that you can't just sell a traditional ad agency. That has to be a different thing. So if you look at those markets, every other day there is some sort of a new technology comes into the market. So where we wanted to get into that game.
Right.
We wanted to become a player to compete with their technologies. So I know like that's actually, when you look at it, I mean...
That's thinking tall.
Yeah, so I mean like, so that's the question, like, if you try to do that, when you have to allocate such resources. So the question that your internal team will also ask you is, why can't you get more resources here, and like we expand here, we'll do the traditional in a better way. But the problem is that's not what we want to do.
Right.
So the aspiration is somewhere there. So therefore that's why like we are focusing, like 1 year back when we developed these AI technologies, it was good. I mean, it was a novel thinking. But today, now we are thinking about like the next level of those technologies.
Right.
So within a year that we have changed. So I see that we are getting closer to something that we can go into that expansion, and so that's where like we are keep on pushing.
See, what I see from obviously having this fabulous conversation with you is the fact that here's a man who obviously wants to bring new age technology to an industry that has been there for hundreds of years. An industry that obviously works on emotions, works on creativity, and works on human thinking mind. Now, obviously, there's a big sort of discussion and debate going around the world. Will AI start replacing creativity, replacing humans, right? So there are people obviously who fear for their jobs because of AI. But my personal take is the fact that the AI needs to do something where you need to tell it to do. It can't come up with it on its own, right? But here we are in a country, you have a product. You are trying to push a futuristic product. There are no takers for this product because they don't understand this. Isn't that where the problem is? Where data-driven analytics should be more sort of approachable for people to understand your product?
I mean, 100% agree to you. I think, so one thing is that that's true. So Sri Lanka is actually not the market, but we are trying to develop this product here and try to, initiate our story here.
Right.
But of course, I think we have a wider perspective in
It's
terms of...
easier to fail here.
No, I mean, one is that, and the other thing is like, but one thing what we are doing is we are creating cases here. Like,
Right.
we being an ad agency, we have more freedom now.
Right.
So we are using our own technology for our own clients.
Right.
So we create cases to show them, okay, even for a global client, then we can, I mean, like even global market, we can say like, okay, this is the case study. So then that's more easier for people to understand. The second thing what you said was, you can't really replace the existing talent. So I was doing a test run and like doing a demonstration of this technology to one of my former bosses, who's also veteran in, like one of the veterans in the ad industry. So when I show him this, and like what we were actually doing is that we've been like analyzing various different ads, and like we had this chatbot, and then we've been doing like having many conversations on it, and then we created a script for a brand by giving all sort of instructions. So what he said was that of course for any creative director, like anyone, not just specifically a creative director, like anyone who's into creatives or into strategy, they need to have this new skill of prompt engineering. In the future, if you don't, I mean, if you are, it's like that in the old days, like, they were good art directors, but they can just draw things, but
Right.
they are not exposed to these technologies like Photoshop, Illustrator.
Right.
So then they got failed.
Right.
So likewise, the latest addition is that you need to understand how to write your prompt.
Right.
So if you know how to write your prompt, then there are 100 odd things that you can do with it. The other thing is like what AI will give you, like for instance in our technology, that you can literally create a script based on your past learnings, all of that. But the script, what it generates, even we were showing it to a client, and this client was really, he said like, oh, this script is fantastic. I said like, what, I mean, this is crap.
Right.
Said like, if I think in a different way, this is not what I'm going to write.
Right.
Because as I said, like, this will guide us on something, but then you have to be the creative person to think.
Right.
So the creative person will never ever, like, won't be able to leave that person away from the equation, because there is a huge relevance of creativity. But one thing, you need to have the talent to understand that. But the issue, as you said, like, either creative people or strategy people might not have that advantage, or rather that the in-depth understanding of how do we use it. But I'm saying it's actually a disadvantage, because I was in India last I think it was March. So I went for this AdTech event. So there are all sort of people from various different media, like platforms, technology, and clients. There were clients, like their age, if you take, these are like marketing people.
Right.
Like marketing director of a Indian-based company who's, let's say, average in the age of like 55, like for more than 50, right? And they are talking about attribution modeling. They are talking about like the last click attribution. They are talking about programmatic. They are talking about not just programmatic, the advantage and the disadvantage of that. And like they know everything.
So what you're saying is we are behind times here.
Exactly. I mean, that's a huge problem with our marketing fraternity. They need to speed up. One, the marketing fraternities. Number two, agency fraternity. Like the agency staff, they all need to like transform.
Doesn't that really frustrate you, Seninda? I mean, you can sense the future.
Of course.
You know that the technology is there, but you also feel that that's your pushback.
No, I mean,
industry is giving you.
So I mean, like, at the end, like, I'm part of the industry, so I'm also trying to turn this, and at least as an agency we are trying to do certain things. But on the other end, like, one thing what I was also doing is I got this opportunity when I was closely working with the marketing body of Sri Lanka, Slim. So I've actually got involved in developing certain courses. There's one course that we developed was data-driven marketing practitioners. So it was an academic course to transform the marketing fraternity into this all data-driven mindset. So I have got involved in such things as well. Like, when I was doing this, in my vision, I actually wanted Sri Lanka to grow. Right. I mean, that's the bottom line objective while I'm running a business, while I'm doing certain things. But if I compare my business with certain businesses which has started, not specifically advertising, if you take all the businesses which started with my business, I might be in a very middle tier still in terms of the growth. The simple reason is that, it's not really the business growth that I was focusing on. I was trying to prove this point of right. Changing the market, changing the dynamics of this.
And the mindset.
Exactly. So that's why I got involved with Slim Institute, especially like when I got the opportunity, there was an academic drive.
Right.
To train people as I created the syllabus, 2 syllabus, like one of the syllabus is for their national digital diploma.
Right.
So I'm the one who created the syllabus for
wow.
them. And I did for a couple of months, I've been doing the lecturing as well in the first couple of sessions. My objective was to change their mindset.
Right.
To educate people, change. So education and changing mindset, that's the only way how you can grow. So I think that's what we were also doing with our clients. So like slowly we are training our clients to understand, and slowly we are changing them. So that's actually my personal satisfaction when I see that, while, I have a frustration, but when I see certain results with our own thing, there is some sort of a satisfaction. But my biggest satisfaction will come like when somewhere else, touch wood, I would say, from a good market, right. If you get an opportunity to transform or rather to collaborate or like getting into a bigger market, to have a Sri Lankan origin ad agency to become a global agency, that's where my biggest satisfaction would be.
What's fascinating is the fact that you are dealing with technology. Technology is basically changing every single day.
Yeah.
But here you are happy that you are slowly changing somebody. By the time that individual actually has slowly changed to a technology, that technology will be obsolete.
That's true.
Yeah. So that's a frustration.
No, that's why I'm focusing on like I'm creating technologies, but I'm not creating technologies here, like right. For this market.
Right.
So these that's why they see like in a very short period of time, I see that's why I said like War Room I started in 2016. I closed down the War Room in 2022.
Right.
So there's no such War Room now.
Right.
Now we are focusing on these econometric modeling technologies, these MAD AI kind of like creative generative AI technologies, and there are like 4 or 5 more Gen AI technologies we created, and I just kept it aside for the time being. Like it's a plethora of technology that we have created already. So I've given a little bit of a break to our people. Now let's try to earn something out of it. No, I mean like we've been doing it, and then like we know where how these waves are happening. So we are very curious about the changes which are happening in rest of the world. So we are getting like, while the world is talking about cookieless world, they are talking about first party data and all of that. Sri Lanka still yet to,
collect the data.
collect the data. That's true.
So what I see, of course, is there is a massive friction between traditional and futuristic advertising at the moment. But Seninda, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Fabulous conversation with you, and it's good to see that someone like you is really trying to push the technology part of advertising, and the touch and feel of advertising will always be there. Emotion will always be there, but a very important point that you made there is to use the data to basically let them know as to what to say and when to say it. That's the most important thing. So it's not the fact that you're bringing in a system that will change the entire advertising industry, but you're bringing in a system that will help improve advertising and actually help the target audience that you want.
True, but on the other end, this will change the way how the current process of advertising works.
Okay.
So that's what we are trying to say, because if you use these technologies in this particular manner, our traditional ways of doing an adverts, you have some sort of insight, then you have an idea, you create the ad, and then you have a TG. Simultaneously, these things happens. But in our way, like what we do is throughout we collect the data and throughout we identify the changes. For each and every function of advertising creation that we use as data, we use different technologies, and then your advertisement is developed in such a way considering the brain of a human, and then how best it get established there, and that is what is required for marketing. And like there are 3 things in research that say what works in advertising. It's called the affection, this emotional connect, and the second, the most important thing is the cognition.
Right.
How do you get into that brain signals, and the third one is your behavior.
Right.
So we call it like traditionally think, feel, do. So how do we orchestrate these 3 things using data is what we are actually trying to do now.
Fabulous. Seninda, thank you very much for coming on the show with us.
Thank you so
we
much.
learned a lot, and wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Looking forward to a more data-driven advertising at the end of the day. ThinkTall Conversations right here on Barista, that's exactly what we do, inspiring leaders who obviously are standing tall, leaders who are thinking tall, leaders who are out there basically pushing back on challenges that they encounter. We got so many more great inspiring leaders coming up right here. ThinkTall Conversations with Barista. We'll see you soon next week.